We here at Uninterrupted are very excited to announce our brand new sponsor, the United Nations.
United there, United Nations.
The United Nations is a fantastic, fantastic product. Now you might be thinking, the United Nations, all they're good for is undermining national sovereignty. Not true. They also run some of the world's most successful child pedophilia rings. It's true. So you might think, hey, what do I need the United Nations for? Well, exactly. So you might be thinking, how do I get this fantastic product, the United Nations, that I love so much? Too bad, you're already subscribed. Ha 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 ha. They made us read that. So again, the United Nations is a fantastic product and everyone should love. And as the United Nations grand slogan goes, hey, whatever happens, let's just blame the Jews.
United there, United Nations.
In a world gone mad, only one man, okay, maybe more, had the courage to ramble on incoherently. The show is up and the reviews are in. This is the show that many people have described as good. Uninterrupted, Wednesday nights on Tag TV. We're good? Okay. Welcome to Uninterrupted. We have a great show for you today, as our top story is going to be the new scandal for Trudeau and his Liberals. What do you need to know about it? Essentially, it involves an old scandal, and it's not so much a scandal as just the gross mismanagement of Canadian, Chinese, American relations. I'll tell you everything you need to know, how the media, the Conservatives, the Liberals, everyone is going about this the wrong way, except for me, of course, which is why you're here. That'll be our top story. Then, Andrew Scheer takes a stand against left-wing indoctrination. Get excited. Maybe. We'll see how that one goes. Also, is Trump+Facts racism? The Democrats think so, which is why they've embraced an open anti-Semite. Speaking of open anti-Semites, Ilhan Omar is back in the news. Remember, Ilhan Omar is under constant danger of violence because she's a woman of color, and it's so dangerous, and criticizing her is basically violence because people are going to kill Ilhan Omar if you ever say a mean thing. Then why is Ilhan Omar openly praising violence against her political opponents? Could she be a massive hypocrite? Yes, she is. Also, Canada loosens restrictions for military-age men from Pakistan. What could possibly go wrong to just take out the entire... You know what? We'll go into that story too. You might have some reservations about just bringing in random single military-age men from Pakistan with 3 weeks vetting. Yes, that is our new plan. 3 weeks vetting for Pakistani students. We'll go into that. Also, Operation Kill Switch. Everything you need to know. Islamic Relief Canada is going to push forward with their lawsuit against Tom Quiggin, Tag TV, Tahir Gora. I'll tell you everything you need to know about what's going on, as this is going to be a very landmark case in Canada for free speech and how much control does political Islam have over our court system. This might be the defining case as whether or not Canada remains a secular state. Also, we will talk about Justin Trudeau's buffoonery, putzery, self-centeredtude, something. It will be an anti-Justin Trudeau rant, which we all know and love. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's get to it. All right. So in the news recently, you might have heard about a new Liberal scandal, and it stems from what we're calling is political interference in the lives of private citizens as relating to Canada-China relations. So what happened? So two former ambassadors to China. So former ambassadors is the important thing here. So they're no longer working for the government. They are private citizens. They were called by, what's his name, a bureaucrat within the government, Mail Thoppil, Thoppil. He told the diplomats not to speak out, and he cited election concerns or the election environment, and implied that the PMO's office was making this request. Trudeau has then denied that there's any involvement in there. So someone's lying, someone's not lying. What's the scandal here? Okay, I'll give you what you need to know. Here's what happened. So former ambassador David Mulroney, another ambassador, basically said out loud, Canadians shouldn't be traveling to China unless they absolutely have to right now. Which you should not. The Chinese are randomly arresting Canadians. It's not just the two Canadian diplomats that they arrested. Those are the ones we're talking about. There have been other Canadians arrested for spurious reasons. So they said, don't travel to China right now, it's not safe, which is good advice. The Trudeau government basically said, hey, don't say that out loud. It might inflate, in this election environment, we don't want to have you say that. Then they said, okay, we won't do that. They came to the press basically saying the Liberals contacted us, cited election concerns, and said it was from the Prime Minister's office, which has its own set of problems, telling us not to speak out. So this isn't legal, so to speak. It's very frowned upon. It's not right to do that. However, there are conflicting rights and things in play that we're going to talk about them. Then there was a motion within a committee to further investigate. Should we investigate the claims here? Because either Mulroney's lying, or the bureaucrat's lying, or Trudeau's lying, and something bad happened. We should get to the bottom of it. Should we look into it? Now, there are 9 people on this committee, and 5 of them are Liberals. So you can guess how that vote went. No, the 5 Liberals said, no, we should not look into Liberal corruption. Does that sound familiar? It should sound familiar. That's exactly what happened for SNC-Lavalin. Okay, let's back up and let's just do this whole story from the beginning. So this all stems from the exact same time frame, actually. The China fallout happened at the exact same time SNC-Lavalin happened. And it's very important because the two are linked in this way. So Meng Wanzhou is a Huawei executive and connected to the Chinese government. Her father is a party member. Any billionaire in China or any major company owner is connected to the Chinese government. The Communist Party, it's a dictatorship. It rules China with an iron fist. We all know that. Now, there are major concerns about Huawei, as it stands, letting them onto the 5G network that we're not going to touch right now. All you need to know is China doesn't really care what anyone else thinks, says, or does. They are sanction busting in Iran. Essentially, the Americans are upset at Meng Wanzhou because she has been helping Huawei send technology underground to the Iranians. There's an international agreement against that. This is sanction busting, and the Americans wanted her detained. So there was an Interpol warrant out for arrest. Legally, if she came into Canada, we would have to detain her because of international agreements. So Canada didn't violate the law. I'm going to go into what Canada actually should have done there, because it's not even a brilliant political move, it's just an obvious one. Now, China started to arrest Canadians and detain them because China realized at the exact same time, the next week, right? So Trudeau tried to say, oh, we're a country of laws. Like the argument you have to make there is we're a country of laws, there are international agreements, we can't just interfere in the court system, the judiciary is independent, the Prime Minister just can't make a call to the judicial system and release Meng Wanzhou. Right? You want to make that argument. However, the very next week, we found out that the Prime Minister's office and Trudeau actually are quite fond of calling up the judicial system and saying, hey, our friends, yeah, they're going to be prosecuted. Yeah, Quebec construction firm, I know, basically the mafia. But we want, can you just give them a deferred prosecution? We created a new law just for SNC-Lavalin. Yeah, if you could just throw all Canadian principles and good governance. Yeah, listen, I don't care court system. Yeah, we're Banana Republic. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Just do that. The Chinese wanted Canada to do that for them. So we completely undercut our own position, which is why the Chinese are putting so much pressure on Canadians, basically saying, hey, if Canada's a banana republic anyway, and the Prime Minister will just intervene in the judicial system willy-nilly, like we do here in China, because there is no judicial system, why isn't he doing it for us? So that's why they're arresting Canadians and detaining them, which is why you shouldn't travel to China right now unless you absolutely have to. Okay. So that's the whole scandal stemming from China. Now, a couple of diplomats came out and said the obvious. Don't go to China right now. The Trudeau government actually had them say, don't do that. And now, I'm going to pause here and just talk about what are the two things going on here. The SNC-Lavalin, on a scale of 1 to 10 on the scandal meter, is an 11. It's very, very serious. It has major implications. It should be taken absolutely seriously. It is a major, major, major scandal. This is really a 2. However, within context, it becomes more. Right? It's shutting it down. Within context, it gets to a 3 or 4. But it's really a 2. Because there are 2 factors at play here. One, should there be bureaucratic interference in what former ambassadors say? And then the other thing is, what about the rights of the detained Canadians and also the farmers that are being hurt by the Canada-China trade war? So there are 2 things at play here. Right? So, if I'm Prime Minister, if you're Prime Minister, being a leader is about hard choices, and sometimes you have to compromise, and you can't follow every principle absolutely. It's the real world. So what's the more important principle here? All right? Are we talking about what's more important? Is it, hurting a bureaucrat's feelings or following bureaucratic rules to the absolute T? Is that what you want to do? Or is it about the 2 to 10 Canadians illegally detained in China, plus the welfare of all the canola farmers and all the producers, and the health of the Canadian economy? Like, that's the two things you're balancing. Personally, I think the latter takes precedent. I would do it with bureaucratic absolute protocol in the sense, because you have a major problem with China, Canadians are being detained. It would behoove the government to say, all right, we need to get all our diplomatic ducks in a row, and we need to go after China smartly. So I'm not too angry about them doing it. What I am angry about there is they're doing the exact opposite. This is not the message you should be conveying. So what the Trudeau government did, or apparently allegedly did, is he cited election concerns. And this is what the Trudeau government really wants. They're not really advocating for Canadians here. The problem is they're not advocating for those Canadians detained or the Canadian farmers. They're advocating for the Liberal Party's welfare in the next election. They're saying, hey, tone down the rhetoric of China. Don't make China into such a big deal. It's a massive deal. Because election concerns, right, it might make us look weak. It might give the Conservatives a better play. That's the big problem. Then they squash the investigation with a majority on the committee. That echoes the SNC-Lavalin thing, where Jody Wilson-Raybould was able to present a bunch of evidence that the PMO was illegally putting pressure on the AG to basically throw the law out the window, and they quashed that. No, we don't need any further investigation there. No, nothing to see here. That's a major problem. So what to do here? What's the real scandal here? The real scandal here is actually that the Canadian government is not taking this seriously at all. They are pushing this down the road. They're ignoring China. They're basically, I should have had the meme. It's the meme with the house is on fire, the dog sipping tea. This is fine, right? That's their approach to Chinese relations right now. That's the big problem. Okay, that's the big problem right here. So, yes, a bureaucrat, underwent protocol, and that's what we're focusing on. Can a bureaucrat tell private citizens what to say? That's like the technical thing we can get him on. That's the technicality in this issue. But it's really the most irrelevant part of it. The relevant part is the ambassadors actually gave some pretty good diplomatic advice, and the Canadians should be pushing China some more. So what should really have been done? Now, there was an easy fix to this. Okay, Meng Wanzhou was wanted by the Americans. She had to be detained due to national protocols. She's coming over from a plane from China. You know that. She's flying into Vancouver. You have 10 hours to make a decision. Can we come up with an idea that doesn't get Canada in a crossfire? I don't know. Reroute the plane to Seattle. That's all you had to do. This whole thing would have been avoided if the Canadian government had the foresight to call the Vancouver airport, say, reroute that plane to Seattle, have everyone get off the plane in Seattle. Meng Wanzhou would be detained by American customs. The Americans would have her, and then they could fly back to Canada, and Canada's out of it. Then it's just China and America instead of China and America coming at each other through Canada. Right? We put ourselves in a bad position there. That's easy fix number one. That is ultimate hindsight going on there too. And then the third thing is, what should we, what should we value here? Should we value, bureaucratic protocol? Should we say, hey, we need to make sure that all the rules are followed to the T. We know we can never violate them. Or is the real thing the Canadian citizens? And what we're doing is neither, really. We're just screwing around, dug into the middle, and that is basically the Trudeau way. I think the mic needs adjusting. Cut that out. Is this better? All right. Sorry, everyone, for that. All right. Moving on to our next story. Andrew Scheer. So Andrew Scheer has decided to grow a backbone finally. And Andrew Scheer, I'm so excited. We're talking about a new Liberal policy which Andrew Scheer has called ideologically driven and doesn't reflect science. Could it be? Is he going to do it? Is Andrew Scheer going to take a stand against this? Is he? Let's read on. Ideologically driven against food guide for milk? Really? This is what we're talking about? This is where you take a stand for milk? Why? Why are you making this so hard? I'm trying to tell people to vote for you. I'm trying my best to make the case for you, you spineless coward. Okay, here's why this is so bad. There are so many Liberal policies that are ideologically driven and don't reflect science. Bill C-16, we currently have someone with a penis creeping girls online, going to waxing salons, ruining people's lives, saying, I'm a woman, look at my penis, now wax my penis, it's a vagina. It's insane. I know every week we have to do a sex ed talk here, but milk? Really? Really, your big problem is we are ideologically driven and we're not drinking enough milk. The guide says drink water and eat plants. That's where you take a stand? That's your big thing is, no, don't eat vegetables and drink water. Drink milk! Okay. Now, Maxime Bernier came into my life a couple years ago, running for the Conservative leadership, when he said, we need to get rid of the milk mafia in Canada. And I said, is he finally talking about how stupid dairy is run in this country? Canada is a country that heavily subsidizes the dairy industry. Not all the dairy farmers, just 10% of them. Heavily subsidizes dairy. Yet, we have increased prices. The supply side management and how the milk cartels here work will make you want to drive your head through a friggin' wall. We subsidize milk and make it more expensive to the benefit of just 10% of dairy farmers. Those dairy farmers happen to be concentrated in certain ridings, which means in order to win like 4 seats in the next election, you need to bow down to this specific milk mafia, stupid cartel. Okay? It's so spineless because you only get one shot at this, right? If you want to say something is ideologically driven and lacks science, how about, I don't know, Bill C-16 as we just said, or any of the other things that Canadians actually care about? Because now, if you ever do take a stand against Bill C-16 and say, this is ideologically driven and lacks science, the media will just say, yeah, just like the time he told us not to eat vegetables and drink water. What a putz. You set yourself up. This is your stand. This is the hill you're willing to die on. This is where you call out the left and their ideological insanity. Don't drink water. Drink milk. Are you kidding me? Okay, this is... we subsidize milk and make it more expensive. Okay, I get, at least when corn. Corn is so heavily subsidized because, you know, Idaho and the American primaries, so it just has to be heavily subsidized, which means corn is super, super, super cheap, which means all the food basically has corn in it, and then we have so much corn left over because it's so cheap and so heavily subsidized that we're just like, what do we do with all the corn? I don't know, throw it in Africa. Who cares? Whatever. Slight tangent, because I'll back up Maxime Bernier once again. Because Maxime Bernier is eventually going to say something like, let's end the foreign aid, it's hurting everyone, and they're going to be like, he hates black people, or Islamophobia, or God forbid, black Muslims, or something. And then I'm going to get on the TV, and you're going to defend him, because you're going to be like, wasn't that angry Jewish guy ranting about milk and corn one day? Yes, okay. Here's how corn subsidies work in foreign aid, tangent, whatever, we're doing it. So, here's why this type of foreign aid is bad. A country is poor in Africa. Let's say Ethiopia, right? Live Aid, that's where we're going, okay? And you want to give them food. It sounds nice to just take a bunch of corn and dump it on the market, but here's why that is a bad thing. He doesn't like giving people free food. It ruins the economy and creates further problems because in Ethiopia, you can get cheap food from Ethiopian local farms. However, in a poor country, what is a better price point for people? Free or cheap? Free always beats out cheap, which means when you flood these countries with just massive influxes of free corn for a little bit, what you end up doing is sustaining them on corn, but then because everyone goes to the free corn, no one's going to buy the cheap vegetables made by their farmers, which means farmers will stop making vegetables if no one's buying them, because then they're left with too much food, and then they end up rotting and wasting. So then farmers stop farming, which means you need even more corn, because now no one is doing farming in those countries. This is why foreign aid ends up destroying these countries, if it's done stupidly, which most foreign aid is. I don't know why we went on that tangent, but we did. We went there. Because this is driving me absolutely insane. Can Andrew Scheer just try and win this election for one day? One day, Andrew. Please, please, I'll be your best friend. I'll say nice things about you. For one day, if you actually try and win the election, I will give you a big hug and kiss. Please, please try and win. I'm rooting for you to try. Please. But do we have to talk about the goddamn milk mafia every time? The only people you're willing to stand up for are the 10% of dairy farmers who are making Canada's economy less competitive and making cost of living for Canadians even worse. Again, we subsidize milk and dairy and somehow make it more expensive because that's how these milk cartels work in Canada because it's so goddamn stupid. That's what drove me into Maxime Bernier's arms all those years ago, because I was making that exact rant to random people, like friends who now became acquaintances after that, so thank you for sitting through that. But oh my God, can we try and win the election, Conservatives? Get on the goddamn train. Okay, Here's an important story. Probably the most important story that will get zero press coverage. You know it's really important if it gets zero media attention. Operation Kill Switch. If you've been following this channel for a long time, you've heard me talk about what Operation Kill Switch is. It is a program or an attempt by Tom Quiggin and others to sort of stop the government financing of terrorism. Now, here's how this works. Currently, Tag TV is named in this lawsuit. Tia Gora, who's down there, is also part of it. Here's what you need to know. Okay, there is a organization, a charity in Canada called Islamic Relief Canada. It is part of a larger subsidiary of Islamic Relief Worldwide. Islamic Relief Worldwide is centered in the UK. Now, Islamic Relief Canada and Islamic Relief in general has been identified in the Canadian Senate by expert testimony as a front group for the Muslim Brotherhood. It is. Now, here's the allegations. Islamic Relief Canada sends money to Islamic Relief Worldwide. It's in their contract. It's part of it. In order to use the logo and whatever, you have to send money to the conglomerate. Islamic Relief Worldwide is considered by some governments a terrorist organization, and you can see in their financial records they do finance terrorism. There actually is documents with, we'll go over it all tomorrow, where Islamic Relief Worldwide does send money into the Gaza Strip to actual Hamas operations. So there are Hamas radio station and Hamas propaganda points. They actually do give money directly to Hamas. The United Arab Emirates, they sound quite Islamophobic, I know, but the United Arab Emirates says Islamic Relief Worldwide is a terrorist organization. The government of Israel says Islamic Relief funds Hamas, a terrorist organization. When those two countries agree on something, pay attention. The Muslim majority country of Bangladesh is currently taking on the Rohingya refugees. You might have heard of them. They do not let Islamic Relief Worldwide give them free money to help out in the refugee camps because they fear Islamic radicalization and terrorism. Right? So Bangladesh says no Islamic Relief, they're too terrorist connected. Okay? This is all government data. Canadian Financial Times took Islamic Relief off their charities because of terrorism concerns. HSBC Bank in Switzerland, a Swiss bank, will not take their money because of terrorism concerns. No, UBS in Switzerland. HSBC is a UK bank. They both say no to Islamic Relief because of terrorism concerns. Got those two confused. But still, a Swiss bank, UBS, and a HSBC, right? A lot of major organizations have cut ties with Islamic Relief because of terrorism concerns. Now, this is what Tom Quiggin did. He compiled a database, and I'll post it on the page later, of all the sort of public records of Islamic Relief sending money down a pathway that they know will end up in the hands of terrorists. Okay? That's illegal in Canada. You cannot do it. It's called the Dawson decision. I can't remember the exact coding of the law, but if you look up Dawson decision, it's it. In the Dawson decision, it says you cannot send money to a terrorist organization for like a good cause. This means you cannot give money to Al-Qaeda so they can build a swing set. If you give Al-Qaeda $1 million to build a playground, essentially the ruling in Canada is that's $1 million you've freed up for Al-Qaeda to spend on suicide vests and whatnot. So any money to a terrorism organization, you can't give money to terrorism for a good cause. That's considered funding of terrorism. Now, here's the big thing. The Canadian government has been sending money to Islamic Relief, knowing all this. Justin Trudeau has done videos promoting Islamic Relief. There's only two things he's promoted since he's been in Prime Minister in video. One is the Mohammed Faik, the owner of Paramount Fine Foods, who does give a lot of money to Islamic Relief Worldwide, and two is Islamic Relief Canada. The only two things he's ever promoted, these two things. Now, if you remember Motion 103, M103, the Islamophobia motion, which just got some bad news today as hate crimes across the country have gone down in all categories. Islamophobic hate crimes actually down 50% this year, which is a good thing. But apparently, there's still increasing Islamophobia according to the government. I don't know how decrease means increase, but welcome to the left. Okay, so the allegation is Justin Trudeau, Ahmed Hussein, Chrystia Freeland, Iqra Khalid, Marie-Claude Bibeau, and Omar Al-Ghabra have knowingly used their position in government to send money down a pathway through Islamic Relief Canada to a terrorist organization, that being Hamas. That's a pretty startling accusation. However, if you read the entire document, at no point does Tom Quiggin provide any opinion or new information. He basically compiles all public records. So this claim is made purely off of the internal records of Islamic Relief Canada, Islamic Relief Worldwide, the Canadian federal government, HSBC Bank, UBS Bank, and what all these people have said. There is no commentary, there is nothing to it. It's just basically a compilation of public facts and records sent to the RCMP for investigation. He was then sued by Islamic Relief Canada. There's been a whole thing about it. If you're following the show, you know all about this. Now, the big news is Islamic Relief Canada has decided not to drop the charges. And this is somewhat good news, but it also presents some other worries. Now, what these organizations do, what Islamic Relief likes to do and all these other ones, is they file spurious lawsuits because you have to then get someone to defend yourself. You drain yourself of all this money, and then right before it goes to court, they drop the charges, right? It's called a slap. Now, they didn't drop the charges here. And the reason they dropped the charges is because if they go to court, if they go to trial, they then have to expose their own internal records, and their board members can be put on the stand for cross-examination, which is going to happen. And if they do that, they have to release their public records, and it will show that they are sending money down the pathway that goes towards Hamas, a terrorist organization. This will be a case where we will have to decide, and the Canadian government will, and the court system will decide, there's going to be obvious evidence of terrorism connections and money going towards terrorist groups. There's enough evidence. The evidence is clear. It is out there. There's evidence on all these board members. There's evidence on the organization itself. The question that we're going to have to ask is this too Islamist to fail? Is that the question? Will a judge just rule using some sort of feelings-based precedent that, yes, Islamic Relief might have some shady connections, but hey, they're Muslim, so Tom's guilty? That might be the ruling. That very well might be the ruling. Now, we kind of goaded them into this. They kind of thought by putting the lawsuit on, they'd keep us quiet, then they'd drop it right beforehand, it'd be their sort of slap on the wrist, and then they'd walk out champions. But we kind of pissed them off by doing things like this, and they're going to try and take it to court, and they're going to try and beat it. And if you get a left-wing judge in Canada, they might just throw out the law and say, hey, you know what? Islamic Relief wins because Islamophobia or something. And just to be clear, the Canadian government is sending money to this organization. The M103 we just talked about, the Islamophobia motion, Iqra Khalid was put in charge of $23 million to fight Islamophobia. She publicly announced that money would be going to Islamic Relief. Islamic Relief doesn't even do the fighting Islamophobia thing. It's supposed to be a charity that gives aid money to Hamas. Right? They got Canada summer jobs grants, right? Again, if you think abortion isn't great, you don't get summer jobs grants. If you think Hamas is great and suicide bombings are great, you could still get summer jobs grants. So the Canadian government has been sending tax dollars to an organization that in our own Senate, there has been expert testimony identifying their link with a radical Islamist organization and a terrorist group. So this is going to be a major landmark case, and I'm going to go into all of this because the Conservatives are not doing us any favors, as Justin Hamish and Andrew Scheer are actually putting out documents to discredit Tom Quiggin, the intelligence expert who put this all forward. Now, Tom is a court-certified expert in terrorism in Canada, which means if Tom Quiggin testifies in a court of law on the subject of terrorism, his testimony is counted as evidence. So this isn't just a baseless accusation from a random dude. This is serious. And we're about to test the bounds of Canadian law. Does free speech beat out concerns of Islamophobia? That will be the absolute litmus test here in Canada. I will keep you posted. And tomorrow night on our live episode, we're going to talk all about Operation Kill Switch and all the different propaganda arms trying to take it down. So tune in tomorrow night at 9 p.m. And if you want to stop by now, like the video, share the video, like the page, subscribe to the YouTube. Whatever you're doing, you have to like or subscribe because that's how the game's played. And you know, my emotional state is directly connected to you doing that. All right. Moving on. Staying in Canada with similar concerns. Pakistan. A country that is not our friend, technically our friend, we don't know. A brilliant new program from the Liberals will, you know what? Who needs to vet young military-age single men coming from Pakistan? Not us. Haha. So the Student Direct Service, what's it called? Student Direct Stream is a program which basically lets students fast-track themselves into Canada. So you see that. Now, what could possibly go wrong just bringing a bunch of Pakistani students into Canada unvetted? Oh yeah, that! Pakistani student killed over blasphemy on university campuses. Okay. A university student in Pakistan accused of blasphemy against Islam has been killed by a mob of fellow students on campus, police say. This story is from 2017, but it illustrates my point quite well. Pakistani students might see someone draw a picture of the Prophet Muhammad and try and kill them. Oh, how do you know that's right? It's happened in Pakistan. It might happen here. Now, do you trust the Liberal government for 1 second to vet these people for radical Islamist beliefs? Now, do you think the Liberal government is even capable of vetting these people within a 3-week span? These people will be fast-tracked. 3 weeks! 3 weeks for a visa program from Pakistan. Now, I can understand if this is the US, UK, France, a country that we are allied with, ideologically aligned with, and we speak the same language. You can make the case for, students from the US can get a 3-week, it takes 3 weeks to vet US candidate. We're great allies, we speak the same language, we have very similar culture. Okay, let's just streamline, boom, 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 boom. But Pakistan? The country that just tried to murder Asia Bibi? Didn't we give her refugee status because the entire country tried to murder her for drinking from the same water fountain as a Muslim? Yeah, that same person. Now, nothing against Pakistani people coming to Canada. I'm not saying no Pakistani people, okay? This studio is owned by a wonderful Pakistani man, Tahir Gora, who is running for the PPC, whose candidacy I fully support. I would rather have people like Tahir Gora come into Canada than Chrystia Freeland's cousin, lefty McCommie face. I'm pretty sure that's her name. Okay? So Pakistani people can come in. They just should be vetted like a country that is currently trying to kill people for blasphemy. Now, I say this because, Tahir Gora is great and has provided wonderful things to Canada. The reason why we maybe shouldn't trust Pakistan in a 3-week vetting process is Tahir Gora is great. He's a journalist and a poet who's done wonderful things for Canada. A friend of mine. You know who threatened to kill Tahir Gora? The Pakistani government. The Pakistani consulate in Canada, there's a recording of this. There's an actual audio recording of the Pakistani consulate threatening Tahir Gora and Tariq Fatah for exposing them. Basically saying we will fix them. There's an audio of it on the Quiggin report. I'll direct you guys there later. When this video is cut out, there'll be a link there. But really? We're trusting the country that threatens to kill journalists in Canada to vet for extremists in a country where they're pretty nonchalant about extremists, right? The Afghani Taliban has ISI backing, and we're just going to trust those people to vet the students in 3 weeks? Are you kidding me? That falls into the category of what could possibly go wrong. Take a wild guess. It could be explosive. This is like, can we avoid obviously terrible ideas for 3 seconds here? Let's just read something. And the immigration minister is fully in. Here's a quote from Ahmed Hussein. Canada's diverse, welcoming society, high quality educational institutions and opportunity to work or immigrate after graduation have made Canada a leading destination of choice for students from around the world. By expanding the student direct stream to more diverse range of prospective students, we're enhancing the tremendous cultural, socio, and economic benefits that international students provide. Like the killing people for blasphemy. Is that the cultural enrichment here? Again, I don't want to play the bad guy. Again, it's Pakistani people who are bringing you this show right now. But they were vetted in more than 3 weeks. Okay, 3 weeks is the amount of time you should take to vet like the child of an American diplomat, not a random Pakistani student. Pakistan is a very large country with a lot of people and a very corrupt government. We shouldn't give them 3 weeks to vet military-aged single men coming into the country. Because Pakistan's also the country that gave us Iqra Khalid. Fun fact, Iqra Khalid's father, a member of Jamaat-e-Islami, a extremist group which European countries consider a terrorist organization. What could go wrong? Oh, boy. Oh, boy. You know what? Can we just not be crazy for 10 minutes here, Canada? Can we get our game face on? All right. If you were watching the Democratic debates last night, your head probably exploded like mine did. And you might have noticed Orange Man bad. Very bad. Trump is very, very, very bad. Now this week, even on Canadian news, you were hearing all about Trump is a racist. Very racist. Why? Because he said that Baltimore was rat infested. Okay. And here's the take all over the media. You got articles like this. This is even from The Guardian. Whenever Trump says infested, we know he's talking about people of color. We know for a fact he's not talking about rats. When he says Baltimore is rat infested, we know he's not talking about rats. He's talking about black people. Because every time he says infested, he means black people. Like the time he said this. Let's bring up this Trump quote. I won New Hampshire because New Hampshire is drug infested. Now, you might not know a lot about New Hampshire right now. Can we please bring up the picture of the blackest person in New Hampshire? Yes, that is the blackest person in New Hampshire right now. Clearly. Now, this is the problem. This is a big reason why people don't take accusations of racism seriously anymore, because of all these obvious false positives. Okay? I was with you, the left, when they said, hey, when Trump said did the go back home tweet to Omar, Tlaib, and Cortez, we'll throw Ayanna Pressley in there just for fun so she can feel relevant. I said, no, you shouldn't be doing that. That's a bad tweet. It's racially charged, xenophobic, it's bigoted. Bad news bears. Don't do it. But the reason why people don't take it seriously, reason people don't freak out, is because for every one tweet like that, there are 100 false positives. We are trying to make a molehill into a mountain, essentially. Trump went after Baltimore. Now, I have family in Baltimore. I love them. Baltimore is the second most dangerous city in the United States. It has an incredibly high murder rate. Okay? It is crime infested. There are places. I was in tour to Baltimore. Now, all of Baltimore is the hood, except 97% of Baltimore is the hood. There are places in Baltimore. We were on a tour at night, and they said, that's a new thing in Baltimore. It's the blue lights. If you see blue lights, there's like blue lights in a pole, it means, yeah, police don't go there. It's just we've given this area over to the gangs. There are areas all over Baltimore where the Baltimore police are like, do not come to Baltimore, do not go here, because we're too scared to be here. Trump called out this place. Now, the obvious thing we can talk about is, yes, Baltimore's been run by Democrats for 50 years. There's not a single Republican on city council. There's not any Republican Democrats. There's not mayors, sorry. No Republican mayors, no Republican city council, no Republican congressman. It's purely Democrat controlled, and they've run it into the ground. Now, is Trump's tweet, next level helpful? Is this four-dimensional chess where he's trying to fix Baltimore through Twitter? No, he was just going after Elijah Cummings because Elijah Cummings went after Trump. And that's how Trump works. Is Trump racist when he goes after Rosie O'Donnell? When Rosie O'Donnell criticizes Donald Trump slams Rosie O'Donnell. Does that mean he hates women? Does he hate white people? Does he hate people with Irish last names? Or did he slam Rosie O'Donnell because Rosie O'Donnell ran her mouth off against Donald Trump, and Donald Trump likes running his mouth off? I think it's the latter. So none of this is helpful. Now, this isn't praise Trump time. Look how genius he is with tweets. No, this is Trump on Twitter saying Trump things. And is this going to fix Baltimore? No, it's not going to fix Baltimore. Is it going to hurt Baltimore? No, it's not going to hurt Baltimore. Is it just blabbering off on Twitter? It's just blabbering off on Twitter. The real problem is, then you had CNN, you had the CBC, you have the Guardian, you have International News. This is racism. Trump is attacking another black person. After he spent half the day going after, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, who he called psycho. Two white people on MSNBC. So this is the problem, because of these there's numerous false positives here on Donald Trump's racism. That makes people just say, tune out. Hey, I'm not listening to the media. Listen, I saw that. I follow that story. It's not racist. So the next time they hear Donald Trump racist, they just ignore. Which means Donald Trump can now get away with anything because there's 1,000 false positives on the Republican racism thing. And that's been going on for a while. I remember when John McCain was a stupid, evil racist. I remember in 2012 when Mitt Romney was a stupid, evil racist. I remember in 2016 when these all of a sudden became civil rights icons because they criticized Trump. No one has any integrity left. So welcome to the new world where everything sucks but me and you. Okay. Moving on, staying in America, Ilhan Omar, a lovely, lovely lady. Now, another reason why people don't really trust the accusations against Trump, or why Republicans don't listen to the media, Ilhan Omar. If you know Ilhan Omar, you know that she is a victim, a huge victim. She is oppressed consistently by American society. You might say, wasn't she elected to Congress? Doesn't she make six-figure salaries? Isn't she currently vacationing in Italy at a fancy place? Yes, all that, but she is oppressed. And you know what is dangerous? Criticizing Ilhan Omar. Because as we've been told by Linda Sarsour, Ilhan Omar, Rashad Tlaib, Ilhan Omar is a woman of color. A person of color. Now, not a colored person, that's racist. A person of color, that's a progressive statement. And when you criticize a person of color, you put them in danger. Because when you say mean things, or not even mean things, when you just point out the ideological flaws in their arguments on Twitter, or on Facebook, or on YouTube, or just in the media, you are putting their life in danger. Ilhan Omar is going to die. If you say mean things about her, you're basically pulling the trigger. Because Ilhan Omar gets death threats like everyone else in politics. It's dangerous, it's irresponsible, it's reckless! Calling for violence, criticizing Ilhan Omar is basically taking a baseball bat right to her head. Then why is Ilhan Omar retweeting this? Here is a tweet from Tom Arnold. Now, Tom Arnold is a D-list celebrity, and this was retweeted by Ilhan Omar. Imagine being Rand Paul's next-door neighbor and having to deal with Rand Paul lying, cowardly, circular, whiny, bullcrap, lawn clippings. No wonder he got his toupee ripped off. This is alluding to an incident from last year where Rand Paul was attacked by one of his left-wing neighbors because Rand Paul is Rand Paul. He makes a stand. Now, if you remember, Rand Paul recently was the guy who raised concerns about funding the 9/11 first responders. Because Rand Paul makes a big stink every time the government wants to spend $1 on anything. He's quite libertarian. That's what Rand Paul does. He's also the person who spent more than 24 hours talking on the floor to filibuster drone strikes. Okay? Because Rand Paul has principles. I don't agree with everything Rand Paul says, but Rand Paul stands on them. So good for Rand Paul. And Rand Paul did say things about Ilhan Omar that she does tend to hate the country, and he basically said if she thinks Somalia is better, she can go back there for some perspective. And this is, of course, terrible. So Ilhan Omar is basically praising violence against her political opponents here. And not a single peep of this made it onto the CNN or whatever. And remember, in the next 2 weeks, Ilhan Omar is going to say something like, America is evil, and oh, we must praise the Islamic Republic of Iran, it's so progressive, its women's rights record is unparalleled. Iran is currently a country where singing and dancing is actually illegal, and you can get 10 years in jail for sending a picture of yourself to a social activist not wearing a hijab. If you don't know what a hijab is, it's the feminist empowerment scarf, just so you get that. So if you're not wearing a feminist empowerment scarf, 10 years in prison. Now, Ilhan Omar is eventually going to praise this country for its stellar women's rights record, and then Donald Trump, or another Republican, or just some random guy is going to say, Ilhan Omar, that's a terrible take. You don't like America, yet you're praising Islamic countries. That's bad. And Ilhan Omar, and Linda Sarsour, and Rashada Tlaib, and the entire media is going to get up and say, this is violence! This is murder! This is third-degree murder. Saying mean things about Ilhan Omar on Twitter is tantamount to murder. And we're going to say, no, that's not violence, it's criticizing Ilhan Omar. Say, you don't care, lives are at stake, this woman is so colored, it's a person of color, and she's in danger every second of every day. And then we're going to completely ignore the fact that she praised violence against one of her political opponents. It's still up, the retweet's still up there. Still big thumbs up, Tom Arnold. And again, this is why conservatives don't freak out when Donald Trump does something. Because you have a virulent anti-Semite in Ilhan Omar, a virulent America hater in Ilhan Omar, praising violence against their political opponents. And we're supposed to say, oh, Trump does it, right? If there's a double standard, both sides are going to have a double standard. Then we have some D-list celebrity praising violence against politicians. If he praised violence against Ilhan Omar, do you think he'd get another role in Hollywood? Do you think one more acting job would befall Tom Arnold? Not a chance. Right? John Cusack was able to tweet out anti-Semitic garbage, and he's still employed. Tom Arnold could tweet, yeah, kill all Republicans. And the guy who actually, he could praise, Tom Arnold could get on and praise the baseball diamond shooter who shot up Steve Scalise, the Republican congressman, and he would be given a medal. He'd be given the key to Los Angeles. And everyone sees this, and it's bullshit. And we don't like it. And you can't expect to praise violence, then turn around and say, oh, but Donald Trump, he's ruining American politics. It's so different. You know, culture's changed. Everything's happened because of Donald Trump. Trump. You cannot expect to play this game and not have it be thrown back in your face. That is not how life works. All right, let's move on to our final story of the day, which is our glorious leader, Justin Trudeau, being a self-entitled putz. Ugh, I hate this guy. Now, here's a recent clip of him in BC just let's see what he really thinks about the rest of Canada and his ideology. So let's just play the clip and then we'll give some analysis of Justin Trudeau's last week. You hear that, you bunch of rubes? BC is a province that just gets it. You don't understand. You don't even understand how right Justin Trudeau is. This is the epitome of Justin Trudeau right there, right? He put forward an unpopular policy, his carbon tax, which will save 0 trees. More likely to save a pedophile than a tree is his carbon tax program. Okay? Now, provinces have been throwing it out. Doug Ford got elected basically on repealing a carbon tax. Ontario's green energy was an absolute disaster. It increased emissions and increased costs. Doug Ford was voted in to get green energy policies out. Saskatchewan's always been like this. They've been cool for the start. Saskatchewan, carry on. Alberta kicked out Rachel Notley, right? Quebec's weird, right? BC, people in the provinces, like even the Maritimes, which are liberal strongholds, are rebelling against these programs and electing conservative governments that have run on a platform of getting rid of the carbon tax because everyone knows it's bad policy that won't help the environment. And we already did the video of how ideologically blinded you have to be to believe in the carbon tax. So I'm not going to belay that point. But the real point here is how this is just how Justin Trudeau thinks right now, right? You disagree with my policy? Not only do you just not get it, anyone who disagrees with me, they're stupid, they're brainwashed, they just don't care. They don't care like we do. BC, you care and I care, I get it. Now he loves BC, right? He goes there for taxpayer-funded vacations all the time. You saw, there was a press conference with Justin Trudeau earlier this week where a reporter asked him, so you keep flying to Vancouver, right? Your flights between Ottawa and Vancouver have cost this much in carbon emissions. Now remember, everyone's going to die in 10 years, 12 years, 5 years, 18 months is the new thing. We're all going to die. You're going to die, I'm going to die. Now, the reason we're all going to die is because evil people are flying around the world on jets. And jet setting around the world is evil. You know how we stop that? By jet setting around the world to lecture people on the evils of jet setting around the world. So he flew to BC. He wouldn't answer the question of how much fuel he's using to do so. He also wouldn't answer the question of why the Liberal Party wasn't paying for this. So he took a taxpayer-funded vacation to Torfino, BC, so he can go surfing. Right? Basically went dark for 10 days. So we paid for this. Again, Justin Trudeau is independently wealthy. His family is loaded. What great PR would it be if he just paid for his own vacations? But he's not even capable of that. He's not even capable of introspection. So he flies out there, which is evil. It's really not. I don't care where you fly. I just care that you tell people not to fly and call them bad people for flying and then go fly around yourself. All right, he's out there in BC, vacationing, surfing away. Well, there's diplomatic crises unfolding. Doesn't matter. Dude, whatever, surfs up. Not only that, but there's a Liberal Party fundraiser in Vancouver. So this is really bad. Not only are we subsidizing his vacation, we are also subsidizing a fundraiser he's using to raise money for the Liberal Party in the next election. That's a big no-no. And he completely dodges all those questions. And then when provinces start to get mad at the amount of federal authority being used, well, they don't get it. They don't care about progressive, right? They don't care about good values. They're regressive, stupid, evil people. Not like you, British Columbia. You get me, you bunch of hippies. It's run by the Green Party and the NDP. How is this guy running the country? I know, because he's pretty and he has a good name. We rip on the Americans for, oh, Donald Trump's a celebrity. We we elected a celebrity too. He was just pretty, with a good name. He fubbed his way into the prime ministership. I believe terrorists should keep their citizenship. Everyone laughed at him. A room full of liberals laughed at that. And now he's prime minister. And now he's giving money to terrorists. He's pardoning terrorists, letting them keep their citizenship. Now we got, Pakistani students, 3 weeks vetting, sure, 3 weeks. The Pakistani government's on it. It's not like they threaten Canadian journalists or fund the Khalistani movement here, or have basically funded in the creation of the Afghani Taliban. No, we trust the ISI, and the ISI we trust. So that's it for tonight's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Facebook, like the page, follow the page, like the video. Do all the things, share the video, because if you don't, then Canada is doomed. We're all going to die in 18 months, and the only way to save us is to like this video right now. So thanks so much. Tomorrow night at 9 p.m. we will be doing a full dive into Operation Kill Switch and what it means and all the different parties involved. Then every night we now do a new segment called The Worst of the CBC. So join me as I watch 1 hour of CBC News every day. Yes, I know, I've watched 1 hour of CBC News. Then after each hour of CBC News, I will report back to you on the worst or most biased story of the day. I will then report the greatest omission of the day, and then I will rate each episode on a scale of 1 to 10 Rosemary Bardens. 10 Rosemary Bardens being the worst, most biased it could be, and 1 Rosemary Barden being actually watchable. So those videos are about 5 minutes long, so they're just a quick little part of your day. And remember, I watch the CBC, so you never have to again. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next week.